Now in this lecture, let's try to describe the product related APIs using OpenAPI specification based upon the discussion that we had in the previous lecture. If you are successful at implementing by your own, that's great. But if you have some challenges, don't worry. We're going to repeat the exercise one more time in this lecture so that you can become a master at it. So here, like you can see, the third API that we want to describe is /products. So what I can do is I can just close the second API that we have so that I can refer the categories API while we are building the products API. So let me close these responses as well. So first what we have to do is we just have to give an enter and tab space, and we need to mention what is the HTTP method type. So here also the HTTP method type is get, because it is going to return the list of product details. So that's why we have to use get here. So if you are interested about post, update and delete, don't worry, please hold your excitement. We are going to discuss them also in the coming lectures. So now what I can do is I can mention the summary. What is a summary about this API? So the summary that I'm going to mention here is just, it will list all products. So next, after summary, we just have to mention the description, and for descriptions, I want to use the multiple lines to explain my description. So that's why I'm going to give this pipe symbol, and after that I can mention the description in multiple lines. So what I can do here is I can just copy the upper description that we have for categories, and I can mention the same. So here what I can do is I can just mention return the list of products supported by EasyShop. So this is what I can mention here. So to make it work, I just have to give this tab space. So now you can see this entire text has converted into an green. So that indicates whatever highlighted in the green, all that value will get converted against to this description. So that's a YAML syntax that we need to follow. And of course, we are free to mention all this value inside a single line also. But if you want to maintain your description in multiple lines, you can follow this pipe symbol. So once we define this description, then like we were discussing previously, we want to define a parameters as well, which is an optional. Like if someone is passing this category ID as a query parameter, then I'm going to return the list of products supported by that particular category ID. Whereas if this category ID is not available inside my query param, then I'm going to return all the products that are supported by all the categories inside the EasyShop. So the job is very simple. You just have to copy these entire parameters and just mention the same just after the description by following the same line position like description. So like you can see here, this is what I have pasted. The query param name will be the same like category ID, and the in will be query again. The schema we're mentioning because we want to describe the data type of our query param, which is category ID. The type is integer, and this is the minimum and maximum, and this is the example. So after this, we just have to mention the responses. So for the same, what we have to do is just in the same position where we have parameters, we just have to start the responses. And the responses, since we can define the response for multiple response codes, we have to provide the response code here for which you are trying to explain your response structure. So here I will just mention the 200. And after this, what we can do is if you can expand these responses under the categories API, you will see once we define this 200, we have to define the description, content, what is the content type, what is the schema. So we can in fact copy this entire structure, and I'll take that and I'll mention just after 200. So here you can see I have the description. So I just have to mention a list of products, and after that content is again application/JSON. The schema again it is of type array, and since we are mentioning type as arrays, we have to mention these items, and inside the items we need to explain what is the type of our item. So the type I'm giving an object so that I can define multiple properties. So the properties, the very first property that we have is product ID. So that's what I'm going to mention here. And after the product ID, the next property that we have is name of type string. So it is matching. Post name, we have the property with the name price. So the price has to support decimal values. So that's why I'm giving the type as number. So the number inside OpenAPI specification supports decimal, whereas integer supports only the whole numbers without decimal values. So let me check the product object structure. So here after product ID, name, price, we have category name, and after that we have quantity. So let's define the same also. So the next property we have here is category name, and the type is string. So let me mention the type as string. And after the category name, we have quantity. So I'm just going to mention the same. And the type of the quantity is of integer. So with this, we have successfully completed the OpenAPI specification for the API products. So let's quickly do the same for other API, which is product ID as a placeholder inside the API path. So this indicates that we have to use the path params as an input. So this is also going to be super easy. So what I can do is I'm going to copy this entire content here, and I will just paste after this API path. So here after copying the content, what we have to do is we can correct the summary. So instead of list all products, return product details. So that's what I can mention. And the description also I can mention something like returns the product details from Easy Shop. So that's what I can mention here. So now instead of category ID, we want to have the product ID. So let me copy the same here under the name of the parameters. And the input type is not query, it is path. So I have mentioned the same. And whenever we mention the path, we just have to mention one value. What is that? Yes, it is required. And do you remember what is the mandatory value that we need to follow here? Yes, it is true. So now the parameter section is completed. Now if you go to the responses for 200, the description we can change saying that return product details, and the content is application JSON only, and the schema here it can be type as an object because we're always going to return a single object details since my consumer is sending the product ID. So I can remove this type array and items. So with that I can bring this entire object before, so that this is going to look like perfect. So here you can see the type is object, and we are going to use the same properties like product ID, name, price, category name, and quantity. So successfully we have implemented the third and fourth APIs as well. So in the process of defining them, I realized the summary and description here is wrong for the second API. So here also we have to mention something like return category details. So let me mention the same for description also. Return the category details from Easy Shop. So let me mention the same under the responses description also. It is going to return the category details but not the list of categories. So I have corrected that. Now I'm super happy because I corrected an issue. So now let's try to see the Swagger UI. So how it is looking like. So if you see total, there are 4 APIs, and this is going to be super similar like categories. So under products, we have an query param, which is not mandatory. And the example value also we have mentioned 101. Now coming to the responses, this is how it is going to look like. If you click on the schema also, it is an array of products, and each product object will have product ID, name, price, category name, quantity, and price. Please make sure you are using the number, not integer. After this, you can also check the last API that we have, which is the products with the path parameter. So since it's a mandatory, it is showing this required in a red font. And similarly for response of this API, it is going to be only one product object details, which has product ID, name, price, category name, and quantity. So with this, we have successfully implemented total 4 APIs. And in the process, I'm assuming you got enough practice of defining API paths inside OpenAPI specification by following the structure that OpenAPI expects from us. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.